Prynawn da a croeso I sesiynau adolygu Colum Cymru. Bydd y sesiwn yma yn canolbwyntio o Cymraeg ail iaith A-level ac yn cael ei rhedeg gan Sian Rhywun Charles o Ysgol Gyfun Aberpenna. Bydd y sesiwn yn parhau tua 45 munud, lle bydd y athro yn mynd trwy cynnwys perthnasol. Os oes gennych unrhyw cwestiwn, defnyddiwch yr adran holi ac ateb a byddwn yn ymdrechu a ateb eich cwestiwn yn ystod y sesiwn. Bydd y sesiwn cael ei recordio gyda'r recordiad a'r adnoddau personol yn cael ei uwchlwytho ar wefan e-sgol yn yr adol Colum Cymru. Good afternoon and welcome to Colum Cymru revision sessions. The session will focus on Welsh Second Language A-Level and will be presented by Sian Rhywun Charles from Mountain National Comprehensive School. The session will last around 45 minutes, where the teacher will go through the relevant subject content. If you have any questions, please use the question and answer section and we will endeavour to answer your question during the session. The session will be recorded and the recording and any relevant resources uploaded to the e-sgol website in the Colum Cymru area. Prynawn da pawb a croeso I sesiwn ail iaith. Good afternoon and welcome to the Welsh language session. So today we will be looking at the Unit 5 section of our exam. We'll be revising key phrases and patterns in order to answer a trans-languaging past paper question. We're also going to have a look how to structure a response in terms of answering the Unit 5 trans-languaging section. We'll also compare a model answer against the marking criteria. And finally, hopefully you'll have a chance to prepare a response to the unit as well. Okay, so your trans-languaging section or question will be in a Unit 5 exam and is worth 40 marks, okay? So what you'll be given is a piece of English material. We go through an example today, so it could be an article, it could be maybe a blog, or something relevant in the news, and you'd have to respond to it in Welsh. And the examiners in the question do say 350 words in altogether. So they might ask you to respond to it in different forms. So they might ask you to write a letter, an article. So what the examiners are looking for is for you to set out the work appropriately and making sure you also have the correct target audience and language. So for example, if they ask you to write a formal letter, llythyr then they expect you to write formal language throughout as well. And the main aim of this is not to translate. You should never ever translate the piece of text into Welsh. You should be focused on interpreting the content and expressing your opinion about the text. So we will go through a structure today on how to structure the answer. And the material that could come up in the question could be really relevant news stories from Wales or around the world. So hopefully you may be familiar of the topic if it comes up, if depending on the topic that could come up in the exam. Okay, so I want you to meddylwch now, have a think. Beth ydy trawsaethu? What is trans-languaging? What does it mean? What sort of skills are involved? Okay, type in the chat if you have any ideas. Gwych, I can see a really good one in the chat. Someone said it's about interpreting the text and putting your own opinion or presenting your opinion about the text. Gwych, da iawn. So this is a definition of what trans-languaging or trawsaethu could be. So it's to read something in the original form. So you've given the question in English and you basically have to say it in your own words in the language you are translating it to. So you're reading it, not directly translating it, you're just rewording it. So you're summarising the key points from the text. And again, you're doing this yourself, you're looking for the main ideas and you're communicating the ideas through the other language. So you're not directly word for word translating, you are giving your own interpretation and presenting your own skills or opinions about the text. Okay? After, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to translate these to my e-Saesneg. So I want you to tell me what these terms are in English. The reason why we're going through this is because a lot of the questions are in English only. Remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. So e-bost. Okay, so remember these are forms of different writing. e-sgol, I have mentioned that earlier. Llythyra, I'll give you a clue what do you send in the post. Blog sounds very similar to English, to Saesneg. And the next few words could come up in the questions. So you'll be given a main question and maybe some bullet points to include. So manteision, anfanteision, and hopefully you've seen some of these command words or imperative words from GCSE, ysgrifennwch and darllenwch. Okay, so remember, type it in the chat if you have any questions. If we say un funud now, 1 more minute. Oh, gwych, we've just had a question in the chat and someone has said, beth ydy erthygl yn Saesneg? What is erthygl? An erthygl is an article. So they might give you an article or ask you to respond to an article from the text. And these few phrases here aren't only relevant for your Unit 5 exam, they're also relevant for your Unit 6. So remember, in your Unit 6 exam, they might ask you to maybe write a letter, write a blog. So you are going to have to understand what these keywords are in Welsh and how to structure your answer for those as well. So some of the skills today you can also apply for your Unit 5. Okay, just a few more seconds. Okay, so dyma'r atebion. So feel free to send any answers in the text. So an e-bost is an email, e-sgol is article, llythyra is a letter, blog is a blog. So they'd expect you to set out your work in a certain sort of format. So they'd expect you to maybe set out your addresses, how to set a formal language, so using more chi instead of t in a formal letter. Remember your dates, dia, and so forth. Manteision are advantages. So anfanteision are the opposite, disadvantages. So they might ask you in the bullet points, can you tell me the advantages and disadvantages of maybe the article about global warming? Then ysgrifennwch is write and darllenwch read. Okay, so put your marks in the chat as well. Our ddechog is really brilliant that I can see people achieving 8 mas o 8. Remember, in the exam, the questions are Welsh only. So if you don't understand the keywords, then you may struggle understanding what the examiner is asking you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to looking at phrases or brawddegau that you can use in your responses. So I've given you possible sentence starters. And I want you to tell me what they are in English. So I want you to gysylltu'r Cymraeg a Saesneg, connect the Welsh with the English. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Hopefully you've seen some of these patterns from GCSE. So rydw i'n cytuno, yn fy marn, dweddol bod, hoffwn weld, hopefully you've seen that from GCSE. So we're going to reuse these and recycle them in our responses either today and possibly in your Unit 5 exam as well. Remember, if you aren't sure, just 50-50 chance you could guess. And remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. Okay, if we say 2 funud, 2 more minutes. Okay, rydw i'n ysgrifennu atoch chi. Which ones does that connect to? Rydw i'n cytuno. I grynhoi. We just had these phrases. Mae manteision ac anfanteision ydy. Ac anfanteision. Rydw i o blaid. Dylai llywodraeth. Yn fy marn i. Dyweddodd bod. Hoffwn i weld. Mae'n amlwg bod. Mae ystadegau'n dangos. Ces i brofiad tebyg. So hopefully you might have seen the word debyg before. Gallaf gydymdeimlo a yn y pen draw. Okay, so if we say 1 funud now, 1 more minute. Remember, type in the chat if you have any questions. And remember, you may have had loads of other phrases or know a lot more other phrases that you can use in your own responses. So these are just examples that you can use in your responses today. If you know a lot more, add your own, because remember, your teachers have also given you some lovely sentence starters, or you may have learnt some excellent phrases throughout the course yourself, that you might find easier at using as well. Okay, if we symud ymlaen. So rydw i'n ysgrifennu atoch chi achos means I am writing to you because. Rydw i'n cytuno, hopefully you've seen from GCSE, and it means I agree. I grynhoi, to summarize, so you might want to end your text or piece of work by summarizing the main points. Mae manteision ac adfanteision, there are advantages and disadvantages. So you might want to talk the good and bad points about the article or whether source comes up. Rydw i o blaid, I am in favour of. Dylai llywodraeth, the government should. So you might want to give suggestions how to solve the problems. Yn fy marn i, in my opinion. Dyweddodd bod, someone said that. So you could say dyweddodd llywodraeth bod, the government said that. Dylai Jack bod, Jack said that. Hoffwn i weld, I would like to see. Mae'n amlwg bod, it's obvious that. Mae ystadegau'n dangos, the statistics show. Ces i brofiad tebyg, I had a similar experience. So you might want to relate the article to your own experience or your own personal opinion about it. Gallaf gydymdeimlo a, I can sympathise with, yn y pen draw, in the end. Okay, put a mas o 14. Ardderchog, Diane. It's brilliant to see that some people have been able to get 14 mas o 14. Ardderchog, Diane. Okay, so here are some top tips when writing a response to a Unit 5 question. So you may want to read the article a few times to understand what is going on in the piece. So I would say about 3 times. So you might read it once and gain a brief understanding, but I would read it a few times to get your head what's going on, what's the argument, do we understand the vocab, I then summarise the main points. So what's the main points in each paragraph? And remember, you are not translating it. You need to respond to the task. What's your opinion? What's the main arguments presented? Can you summarise? And remember, give your own opinions. What's the good points about it? What's the bad points? Language is important, so we will go through the marking criteria today. But remember, the examiners are looking for accurate grammar. Grammar is the foundation of the course, so you need to be using accurate mutations, extending your sentences, showing off your patterns, so using some of the previous ones that we went over. And as I've mentioned already, it needs to be in the correct format. So if they ask you to write a formal letter, you need to be setting out your work as a formal letter. You also need to then be using formal Welsh, so chi instead of ti. Okay. So, dyma enghraifft. Here is an example of a past paper question. It says, darllenwch yr erthygl ganlynol. So read the article below. In the exam, it would be probably in front of you, you can see. Obviously, we're on a presentation today, so I've split it over a few pages. So, ysgrifennwch llythyra yn Gymraeg tua 3 cant o eiriau at y Llywodraeth Cymru yn ymateb i'r erthygl. So can anyone type in the chat what form do they want to respond to? So do they want you to write a letter, article, story, blog? Gwych, da iawn. So I can see someone has typed in the chat that they want you to write a letter. So you're writing a letter in response to the article from the Welsh Government. So the article that you'll be given today, which we'll go through in a few minutes, is from the Welsh Government itself. It says write around 350 words. So we need to try and aim for that amount of words. It's not a lot, but obviously if you wrote maybe 100 words, it wouldn't be as much detail, and you could be maybe preventing yourself from gaining the higher grade boundaries. Then, gan cyfeirio at y wybodaeth sydd yn y erthygl, dylech chi trafod. So by referring to the information which is in the article, so you need to refer to the article that they've given you in your response. You should discuss manteision ac anfanteision am ddysgu Cymraeg. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of learning Welsh? Eich ymateb chi i'r erthygl. So your response to the article gan geisio awgrymu hyn yn gelled I wneud i'r ateb i'r sefyllfa. So your response to the article by trying to suggest what you can do in order to answer the situation. So they want you to give suggestions or solution on what we could do to try and help with this Welsh, with the Welsh language. Okay, so if you didn't know, hopefully you can see, if you didn't know maybe what llythyr was or ysgrifennwch, then you would struggle actually understanding what the examiner is asking you. Remember, another tip on the day, you could recycle some of the phrases from here in your responses. So if you wanted to say manteision, use it in your answers. So manteision ydy, advantages are, and it shows you also answering the questions as well. If you wasn't sure what Welsh Government was in Welsh, you could again copy this from the answer, from the question. Okay, so following the question in Welsh, you would be given a text in English. So remember, it could be a really relevant piece of, or really latest piece of article or source of information from the news, anything that's relevant. The text that you've been given today is titled Free Welsh Lessons Available to All 16 to 25 and Teaching Staff, and that was published in the 10th of February. Okay, and then following this, you would also be given a list of English and Welsh words which you may want to use in your response. So if you wasn't sure what e-learning was in Welsh, you could look at the list and reuse it in your work. So they have given you some Welsh to help you in your responses. So if they're giving you help, use it in your responses, okay? So just to remind you, you never ever translate this piece of text into Welsh. If you're tempted to translate in the exam, move the exam paper away from you and just focus on your writing, okay? So what I want you to do now is darllen at the article. I want you to read the article. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to read the article. And I want you to ysgrifennwch beth ydy brif bwyntiau yn y erthygl. So I want you to tell me what are the main points. So you may want to write it down at home, but on the day I would highlight or underline maybe about 5 main points from the article. So I want you to darllen the article, read the article. Remember, I've suggested about 3 times on the day. And then I want you to underline maybe about 5 main points, or make a note at home, the 5 main points of the article. Okay, so if we say 2 funud, 2 more minutes. Remember, type in the chat if you need any help with anything. Okay, so free Welsh lessons available to all 16 and to 25-year-olds and teaching staff. From September, 18 to 25-year-olds will be able to enrol free of charge on courses with the National Centre for Learning Welsh. Most courses are currently held online in virtual classrooms using Zooms or Teams, with in-person courses also available. So you have to highlight and go through the paragraph. What's the main point so far? Okay, 1 funud, 1 more minute. Okay, so these you may have highlighted or written down different points, but these were the main points that I picked out. So from September, 18 to 12-year-olds will be able to enroll free of charge. So they are creating courses for 18 to 25-year-olds, and they're tailored to their own level of Welsh. So they'll have entry courses, advanced courses. All teachers and teaching assistants will also be able to have free courses. So all teaching staff will be able to learn Welsh for free. And it's to strengthen the teaching of Welsh in the new curriculum. And also, this is another step towards giving a chance for everyone to speak Welsh and reach the goal of 1 million speakers in 2050. So remember, the Welsh Government are trying to increase the Welsh language rates and gain an extra 1 million of Welsh speakers by 2050. So your next task after that, I would think of 3 questions. Beth ydy neges yr erthygl? What is the message of the article? Beth ydy purpose y gwersi Cymraeg? What's the purpose of Welsh lessons? Ydy dysgu Cymraeg yn bwysig yn eich barn chi? So is learning Welsh important in your opinion? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes now to have a think of these answers. And then I want you to anfon atebion yn a chat. So I want you to send your answers to the chat. So have a think. What's the main message of the article? What's the article asking? Beth ydy purpose y gwersi Cymraeg? What's the purpose of Welsh lessons? And ydy dysgu Cymraeg yn bwysig i chi? Is learning Welsh important to you? Because remember, we will have to express our opinion about whatever is in the article or in the source that they've given us. You'd have to summarise the main points and the purpose as well. Okay, gwych. Can you send any syniadau, unrhyw syniadau, send any answers in the text? Da iawn, I can see that someone sent in that the main message is about Gwersi Cymraeg am ddim, free Welsh lessons. And the purpose of Gwersi yw dysgu Cymraeg. Yeah, the purpose of the Welsh lessons is to learn Welsh. And gwych ac yn da iawn, someone has said, mae Cymraeg yn bwysig, achos hoffwn fynd I brifysgol a siarad Cymraeg. So someone has said that they would like to go to university and speak Welsh, which is great. So now, I want you to think of a possible structure to your response. So the structure that I'm giving today could be slightly different to your teachers, but this is just a suggestion on how to set out your work. Okay, so can anyone type in the chat any ideas? What would you include in your responses? Gwych, I can see someone has said an introduction, barnau, opinions, or advantages and disadvantages, so you answering the questions. Gwych, someone has said summarize. So this is the how I would set out your work. Again, your teachers might recommend something else. So I would say an introduction. I am writing because, or I am writing a response to the article because. In 1 and 2, I'd give an overview. So what is the article or the source writing about? And present some arguments and evidence. So you might want to summarize the facts or any statistics in the piece of work. Then 3 and 4, I would give a personal response and possible suggestions. So what's your opinion about the article? Have you had a personal experience of maybe learning Welsh in the past? 3 pedwar, number 4, summarise the main arguments and suggestions about what to do. So you might want to suggest the government should do something else to try and save the Welsh language. Maybe you agree. And finally, I would summarise and conclude your piece of work. So now, this is the marking criteria about how the WJC will be looking for the high marks. So if we look at the 32 to 40 marks, so remember this piece of work is out of 40 marks. It says you need to express yourself maturely and clearly and correctly. So you need to be using accurate language and also if you have a look at detailed and careful structure. So if you follow the structure that I follow, then hopefully you should be able to gain the higher mark answers. Then you need to pay attention to the format and audience. So you need to make sure if they're asking you to write a letter and it's formal, you are using the correct style, formal or informal. Express your opinion, which as long as you follow the structure that I followed, maybe talk about the advantages or disadvantages, then you'd gain that there. And again, a variety and strong grasp of language resources and grammar. So if you recycle some of the patterns that I put in the session or accurate grammar, be careful of your mutations, then we'll access the higher marks. Okay, so dyma enghraifft. Here's an example of a part of a candidate's response. I want you to have a think, which grade would you give this overall? Can you look for any useful patterns, any opinions, or make a note of any idioms? So remember, if you're extending your work with idioms or connectives, then you may hopefully attain some of the higher marks. Okay, so just 1 minute to make a note of any important patterns. So have a look. Can you see any opinions, any useful phrases? This is also following the structure that I've given you. So have a think, beth oeddans are, what was good, how could you improve it? Okay, good. I can see people typing in the chat that there is a clear structure. They've expressed their opinions, they've had an introduction. And I can see some people have typed in that maybe they need to improve the grammar and add in more detail. So it was probably a little bit shorter than 350 words. So I would agree with that as well, Diane. Okay, so if you need any help in structuring your answer, then I have given you a language map to help you. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes now. I'm not expecting you to complete it during the lesson. I want you to have a go at responding to this question. So remember, the article that they've given you is about Welsh language sessions for 16 to 25-year-olds and teachers. So I want you to start off writing an introduction. Why are you writing? Then at home, I would like you to go on to maybe writing a paragraph summarising the arguments. What's the good and bad points about the article? Then giving your own personal opinion. Maybe you've had experience of learning Welsh in the past. Maybe some of you know family members who's completed Welsh for Adult courses. Then I would like you to move on to section 4, which is summarising the argument and giving advice. What should the government do to try and maybe save the Welsh language? Should they continue with the courses? Is there anything that they can do to support people further? And finally, summarise your piece of work and argument with a conclusion. Okay, so remember, I'm not expecting you to complete this by the end of the session, but you may want to pause the video or session at home. And remember, if your Welsh teachers or you've come up with any useful patterns for the session, then recycle some of those as well in your responses. And remember, examiners are looking for accurate grammar, so proofread your work. And also they're looking for you to extend your arguments with some idioms, connectives. And remember, never ever translate. You are summarising, interpreting the piece of work. If you're tempted to translate, then just move the paper away from you. Okay, so here is also a useful language match which you could use for revision. This is directly from the WGEC, so you might want to revise some of these patterns and put them into your responses. So they are really useful as well. Then here are some blended learning resources that you can use, again from the Blended Learning WGEC website. So you might want to revise Trausieithu, translanguaging, and do a complete lesson on that. You might want to play some word world games, to revise idioms, expressing your opinions, and useful phrases that you can recycle for your Trausieithu Unit 5 exam. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about the session today? Okay, gwych. So the next session will be on decline 21 o Fawrth. So next Monday, the 21st of March, 6:15 to 7 o'clock. And remember to click the link on e-sgol to get to the next session. If you want to go back throughout the session, then the session has been recorded and will be placed on the website. Also, the next session will also be on techniques in short stories. So hopefully it'll be another useful session. So diolch yn fawr for tuning up to the session today.